Hello and welcome to day 7 of the card making countdown. Today we're making side stacker cards. This is when we'll take an image or a photograph in Cricut Design Space and cut it up into sections that will then layer together with foam squares to make a stacked effect on the edge of the card. 7 different templates for side stackers are included in today's download. You've got this one, which comes with straight edges, and none of them come with the pictures on because I'm going to show you how you can add any pictures you like. But there's also one with circular edges instead, so it gives a slightly different stacked appearance. You can see it when I hold it into the light. It's beautifully subtle, but it really does elevate your card into something special. There's also a scalloped edge stacker, and for this one I've done it a little bit different by making it smaller and putting it at the top of the card rather than making it fill the whole card. Each of these 7 templates comes in both a square and a rectangle version, so really you're getting 14 templates. There's this one which has triangle edges that come in from the side, and then we've got a zigzag one with nice bold triangles on it, like that one. And then a lightning side stacker. And for this one, I used a photo to show that you could use photos of your children, your family, your pets, whatever you like on the front of your cards. And I added a few extra embellishments too. This one's really, really thick. And finally, a wavy edge stacker. And I love how this looks. It's just really, really pretty, and it draws your eye into the middle of the card. So that's a look at the different templates that you've got available to you with today's download. And let's find out how to actually make the cards. The files for this project are free for the next 24 hours. Here's how to download them. Register a free ticket for the card making countdown at craftwithsarah.com/cards24. After registering, you'll get an email which contains a link to the schedule page for the countdown. Visit the schedule page to find and download today's files. Each download is only available for free for 24 hours after it goes live. If you've missed some, check out the Instant Access Bundle at craftwithsarah.com/cards24 bundle, which gives immediate and ongoing access to all the files from the card making countdown, plus loads of extra bonus designs. Once you've chosen your images, downloaded them, and unzipped the folder, it's time to get them into Cricut Design Space. Go into Upload, and then Upload Image. You can then either click Browse to find the files on your computer or drag and drop them in. This is the first set of images that I've chosen, and it's these London bus designs. These are square images, but the card I'm going to make will be landscape. So I'm just trying to choose one that when it is cropped into a rectangle instead of a square, it's still going to show quite a nice amount of the image. And I think I'm going to go for this one. So I'll click and drag that in, and then choose complex as the image type. This is a JPEG image, a JPG, which means it's got a white background on it. That's actually not a problem for what I'm going to use it for, so that is absolutely fine. But if you do have the option between a JPEG and a PNG, use the PNG. Press continue. And then if you've got a PNG with a clear background, then yours will kind of look all transparent here. You'll see a little checkerboard pattern instead. That is absolutely fine. If yours is showing all white as well, you can either choose to remove the background if you're going to be putting something else there, or leave it as is. I'm going to give it a try on the remove background because I might decide to change that to a different colour. Yeah, I didn't think it was going to like it. It's too subtle, the colour changes. So I'll keep it as is and just press apply and continue. Choose print then cut image and then upload. Then it will appear in your recent uploads. So you can click it to get the border and then press add to canvas. It might load in really, really big, so you may need to make it smaller so you can see it. And I've also got an error message here telling me this is too big for the Cricut machine. That's fine. We're going to make it smaller. You can ignore that. And also that it has a low resolution. Again, you can ignore that message because it seems to be showing up for anything you upload into Design Space if it's a print and cut image at the moment. It's definitely a bug going on in the software. So if it says it's low resolution, just ignore it. It will still print out beautiful. All right, so I need to cut this into the shape of my rectangle. So I'll click, find your very bottom layer, which is my rectangle here, and then duplicate it. With the copy, under the operations drop-down, change it to a guide. And that means we can now see, let's turn those off, can now see it and it's transparent. So I can choose what part of my image I'm going to have on my greetings card. And can make it a bit bigger. Just bear in mind if you make it too big, it might end up getting a little bit blurry. This probably isn't the best image to choose thinking about it because the action's on the right-hand side. For this type of side stack, it would look nicer if the action was in the middle, but I think it's still fine. When you're happy with where that is looking, drag a box around both of those and press slice, and that will cut your rectangle out. So you see I've now got this layer, which is all of the excess. I don't need that one. Let's just press delete. Now my image did not have any transparent bits on it, so if I move this around, it is a solid rectangle all the way. However, if the image you uploaded did have some transparent bits on it, then a great way to make sure it's going to cut properly is to go to your slice result that is the guide, change it back to a basic cut, and make it a pure white. Then move it in the layers panel so it's underneath your image, drag a box around both of those, and flatten them using this flatten button. And that means if there were any little gaps in this where it was transparent, we've now filled it in with white. So when we print this out and then load it into the Cricut, it's going to cut that perfect rectangle around the edge. It's not going to cut out any little bits that would have been hidden or invisible, in the middle. Right, so now it's time to start cutting out our sides. So we're going to need to make loads of copies of this. We need one for every layer, including each side separately. So in total, that's 7 different images. So there's 1, just press duplicate 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Press select all, align, and center. Everything is now perfectly one on top of the other. Click on the side stacker design and press arrange, bring to front, and then ungroup the layers. Now the very bottom one, the rectangle, we've already got a copy of that because remember our image is that perfect 5x7 size. So I can just delete that one and then I've got my original here. I'll rename this layer 1. Okay, so this one down here will be my bit that's going to show in the middle. And then I'll hide all the other ones just to make it a bit clearer what we're doing for the rest of it. And I'll hide that bottom one. So let's turn on the next one. And then we'll hide all of these two so that we've just got one remaining. So you should now have 2 layers showing. We've got one copy of that print and cut image and one of the sides. Drag a box around both of those. So we've got 2 layers and it's not going to let me slice. Why is that? Normally you can slice print then cuts. That's very strange. Okay, what if I unflatten it and delete the white rectangle and we can add that in later. I am a bit confused why it didn't let me do that. Okay, so now it will let me slice. And we can get rid of everything we can't see. And then because I had to get rid of that white rectangle, I'm going to make this one white and move it underneath and then flatten those two together. That was really weird. So this will now be layer 2 left. We can hide it. And then let's bring on the next one. And I'm going to have to unflatten this again. That is so strange. You definitely used to be able to slice once you'd flatten stuff together. I'm going to try and figure that out. But in the meantime, let's unflatten and delete the white. Select both of those, my grey and my picture, and slice. Delete the bit you can see, and then I'll change that to white. Drag it down and flatten. Then rename this layer 3 left and hide. And then it is just repeating that exact same thing for all of the different pieces of the side stacker. Oh, I just deleted the wrong one. I meant to delete that one. I'm going to whiz through it quickly just to show you that once you kind of get into the rhythm of it, even with having to do this re-flatten thing, it does end up pretty quick. So I'm going to do one now without talking because I'm quicker if I'm not trying to talk at the same time, just to show that it does end up pretty quick by the end of it. If you accidentally move it, like I just moved it a little bit, press undo and just undo that move, because if you start moving it about, it's not going to slice in the correct place. That's kind of why I like selecting it in the layers panel rather than over here, because I often find, especially on this particular computer that I'm using to record this video, sometimes I just accidentally move things when I don't mean to. Whereas if you select it in the layers panel, then it's a little bit harder to move things accidentally. But I said I wasn't going to talk, and now I am. So now I am going to be quiet. This time I'm calling it layer 2 and then right, because it's the second layer for the right hand side. That's the third, and I've just got one left. And I've realised that the fact that it's not letting me slice after I've merged things together is going to be quite problematic for the next part of this tutorial that I've got planned, showing you how you can build up a scene with lots of different images. So I'll give it a go. Hopefully we'll still be able to do it. But for now, oops, that is all of them. So now I can turn them back on, and you're not actually really going to see that you've done anything. It just looks like we've built the picture back up. But once you click on make, you can see all the different pieces that we've made. And these will be loaded into the Cricut once you've printed them out, and then it will cut around the edges of all the pieces. Then we can stack them up. If you're new to Print Then Cut, or if you'd just like a refresher, check the description of this video for a separate tutorial on how to print then cut. But go ahead and get all of those printed and cut out, and then we'll see how to put the card together. Here are all the pieces of my side stacker cut out. Now, the most important thing when you're sticking these together is to make sure you get all the pieces in the correct order. The biggest bits will go on first, and then we'll go in size order, ending with the smallest. So I've put these in the order I'm going to stick them, and then I've got my left ones here and my right ones here. And then this is my 5x7 inch main printout. We'll use foam squares to stick all of these pieces together, which is going to be what gives it that lovely depth and dimension. These ones are quite small. I have got some of a pack left of slightly larger ones, which I'll use up first, as I'll make it a little bit easier as they're bigger. Okay, so choose one of the biggest pieces that you've got, turn it upside down, and then we'll add on the foam squares. You want to add a good amount, so it's going to stick really well, especially as this is the bottom. It's going to have lots of other bits on top to make it heavier. And as well as putting some bits around the edge, we'll put a couple in the middle too to hold it nice and steady. We need to have a sturdy base to work from for all of the other layers to sit on top. Now I'm peeling the tops off of these foam squares to reveal the stickiness underneath. Then bring in your main picture, and I'm going to line up this edge with the edge here. And be very, very careful to get it exact. Especially if you're using glossy photo paper, because it's very unforgiving. Even if your foam squares touch just the tiniest bit, you'll probably find you can't get them off again. So I've done that and lined it up there. And then you've got a choice. You can either continue building up this side and do the other two pieces, or you can do the bottom biggest piece on the other side. That's what I'll do, I think. And this is exactly the same as the right side that we've just done. Then line it up, but this time along the other side. So the left of this one, it's going to go on the left of this one. You might find it easier to do it upside down. I do. I think it's because I'm left-handed, so I kind of find it easier to stick that way around. Just make sure you don't accidentally stick it upside down if you're going to do that. But now that's the first bit's done. See, I've got my gap here where the two edges don't quite touch. And then we can build up the next one. So this is the second biggest, or the middle of the different sides. This time I think I can get away just with 3 of my foam squares on there. And then we're still lining up with the outside edge. Get it nice and straight and push down. And then I'll do the same with the second size on the other side. I'm doing it my funny way around again. There. Now we're 2 layers in. Kind of see the depth starting to build up. 1 more to go. I only have 2 of my big foam squares left, so I'm going to have to move on to the smaller ones. As these are really small, I'm going to put 2 next to each other, so it fills up a little bit more of the space. 1. And now for the other side. Right, that's my side stacker topper finished. Got all my layers in there, and this would now be ready for me to stick on a 5x7 inch card base, and it's going to go all the way to the edge of the card, showing none of the card around it. It's just going to be this picture. But you might not quite like that effect. You might want to add some extra detail and colour to your card. We can do that by making the side stackers a little bit smaller and adding some extra pieces in Design Space. Let's see how to do that next. We just made our side stacker card so that it completely filled the whole of the front of the card. But if you want to do it so that it isn't quite that big, here's how you can do that. First, select everything and group it. And then we'll make a base card this time rather than using a pre-made card. So I'll go into Shapes and choose a rectangle. I'm still going to do a 5x7 inch card, so my width will be 7 because it's landscape, and my height will be 10. And let's do, maybe a light red would look nice against the red of the bus. Add a score line by going into shapes and choosing a score line, making it the width of the card. You'll probably need to rotate it if you're doing a landscape card. Select both of those and go align and then center. That puts the score line in the middle, but we still need to go down to the layers panel and press attach to join it on. I'm then going to make another rectangle and make this a little bit smaller to add an extra little pop of colour on the front. And I'll go maybe half an inch smaller, so 6.5 as my width, 4.5 as the height. And then make that a darker red. And then I want this to go on top of that a little bit smaller still. So I'll untake my padlock box. I'm going to go 6.25 wide, 4.25 tall. So I've taken that same amount off, 3/4 of an inch off, and bring to front. And that would go on there. So then we could do the print and cut and put the side stacker together in the same way, but instead of sticking it straight to the card, you've now got some extra colours and pop showing through, which just gives you a little bit of extra detail on the front of your card. This was our original 5x7 inch stacker, and then here is the new one on my card front, that little bit smaller. I changed it to a grey card as I thought that kind of matched in a little bit better. And I think that I definitely prefer this one because it looks a bit more like a finished card. There's a little bit more going on. And I like that you can match in the colours to what's going on in the picture. Next, let's go back into Design Space, and this time we'll have a little look at what happens if you want to add more than one picture onto the stacker design, so we can build up a scene from multiple graphics rather than just using one. For this part of the video, I wanted to show how you could build up a nice scene using lots of different images and then use that for your side stackers. But as we discovered previously, that isn't going to work because once you flatten lots of images together, it's now no longer letting you slice, which I'm sure it definitely always used to do, because normally when you flatten stuff, it would then become one layer, which means because you've got one layer and a slice, you could do that. You could cut it out. Because slice only works with 2 layers, but now it's kind of putting it in a group instead. So if we just selected all of that and press flatten, you see it's now kind of put it in this little group thing here, and I think that's what's now allowing it to not be sliced out. So we're going to have to be clever because I really want to show how you can do this with different images. So I've got 2 separate ways to do it. One is more ink saving, but doesn't give quite as good a finished effect in my eyes. The second does use a little bit more ink, computer ink on your printer, but the finished card I think ends up a little bit nicer. So I have these 3 separate images. The spring background and the bulldogs are from Creative Fabrica. This butterfly is from Cricut Access. I typed in watercolor butterfly to find it. And you can just build up your scene using images however you want to. So just resize things, move them around, rotate them, make it as complicated or as simple as you want to. I'm just adding these in. Might do a couple more butterflies. Might cover up that little butterfly with a big butterfly. No, I can keep them both. There we go. And maybe one more. Just over here. There we go. I like that. Okay, so obviously I've just done that really quickly, but you can spend as much time as you want adding as many different pictures as you like. When you're happy with how it's all looking, drag a box and group all the layers. Now for This one, I am using the square template. So this is already square, so that's perfect. And actually, instead of grouping, I probably wanted to flatten. So I'm going to ungroup that and flatten them instead. There we go. So now we've got that in there. And I need to resize it to fit on my card front, which I've already created. Actually, no, that is pretty much the exact right size, 5 by 5 inches. Perfect. All right, I need my side stacker template. And this time I'll use the square so I can delete that one. Now, here are the two different ways for getting your Cricut to still cut out the different sides, even though it's not going to let us slice like we just did. And actually, you might decide that this is much easier than doing all of that slicing work we did at the beginning anyway. I kind of do wish I'd thought of this first because it would have saved some time. But we're going to go with it. All right, I'm going to make a copy of this so I can show you the two different ways and also a copy of the side stacker. The first way is just to drag a box around one of the edges of the picture and your side stacker. Make sure your side stacker is the same size as your picture, which mine is. Then go align, center, and then with them both still selected, press attach. And although you can't see the side stacker, if we look, it is still there. So what this is going to do is it's going to print and then cut all of the lines of the side stacker down the same bit of card. So you'll end up with strips of card for the sides rather than the full rectangles. I'll show you in a minute so you'll see exactly what I mean. So this is the quickest way to do it, but in my opinion, you don't get as good an effect because when the card's stuck together, you're going to see on the edges that it doesn't quite have all of the picture. Also, beware of your Cricut mats when using this version because it's going to try and cut around every single one of these rectangles, which means on these bits around the edge, that's going to end up being cut 5 times, I think. 1, 2, 3, the base, and then the print and cut. Yeah, 5 times. You can make it go a little bit easier by deleting the very bottom square. And then it's only going to do each one 4 times around the edge. And it will still cut out the full square because you've got the print and cut one here. But it still means the blade's going to go around 4 times, so it will cut deeply. So just be careful because that might end up cutting into your Cricut mat. An easier, well, no, not easier, a better way to do it, let's just hide that one, is to make 4 copies of your print and cut. 3, 4. And then I'll select all of these and go align, center. And this time we're going to, let's just hide these. Ungroup our side stacker. We don't need the very bottom one because we've already got that with our one down here. Ooh, don't know what I just did there. I was trying to rename it. So this is our layer 1. And then what we can do is attach each bit separately. So hide your smaller layers until you've just got the big ones. And then turn one of these images on. And then select that with your grey rectangles. So I've got the left and the right one and the biggest one of each and press attach. You can't actually see what I've done. And that is important because if you put your grey rectangles on the top so you can see them, it means it will print out a grey rectangle instead of the picture. So we want it to be underneath. So I've got my print and cut and then my 2 rectangles. You can sort of see if you click them. So now this is only going to cut twice, once around the whole square and then it's going to cut each of my rectangles out. So that's much safer and easier on my Cricut mat. And then I'll just have to throw this middle bit away. And that's why I said this one's kind of a little bit of a waste of ink, because we are going to end up with some bits that we don't need. All right, so that's my layer 2. Then we can turn on the next set. Let's hide that one. Turn on the next picture. Select all of those and attach. This will be my layer 3. And then one more with the very 2 edge bits. You see they're very small. And that, oh, I don't know why it keeps disappearing into a different group. It's not what I want it to do at all. Right, I've got all those selected and press attach. And that will be my layer 4. I can turn them all back on. And now when I press make, it's going to do it 4 times. I might make it a little bit smaller just so that I can fit 2 on one sheet. Is that definitely too big? Yeah, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so that I can save some printer paper and not need to use so many. So let's align all of that in the center. And let's make it 4.75 square instead. It'll still look nice on that pink. There'll just be a little bit more of it showing. And now, hopefully when I click make, it'll put 2 on a sheet. Yes, much better. All right, so this time it'll print it out 4 times, but you'll cut it nicely so that you see your rectangles. I'm actually just going to try doing this and see if it does show the rectangles on here. Yeah, so this is why we put the rectangles underneath the print and cut when we were getting everything ready. Otherwise, you see it's going to print that grey, and we definitely don't want that one. So I'll just put that back. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and cut both of these versions. My original version up here that had everything all as one attachment, and then this version where I've got the 4 printouts and it'll cut each of the sides, and then we can see the difference. You can decide which one you like the best. It's a little bit of a workaround. It'd be so much easier if Design Space just let us slice with when we've put lots of different print and cuts together, but maybe we'll be able to do it again in the future. Who knows? I've got my 2 different Bulldog side stackers cut out. The first one, which is the one where we just cut each square separately, this worked out the same as all the other side stackers I've already shown you. So I've glued this one together. I haven't glued it. I've stuck it together with foam squares to give it that dimension, so it's no different to this one in how it goes together. However, the other one, where we joined all the layers in one, that's cut out like this. I hope you like jigsaws, because this basically is a jigsaw puzzle. I'm going to have to put everything down and work out the order that it goes in. Okay, so that's what we've ended up with. And then to stick it together, we're going to need to do each one separately, but also remember the leveling. So if we look on here, our very right one, this is the one that's had all the dimension. This is the tallest one. In total, there's 3 foam squares under here, because there's the one under this bit, and this bit. We'll have to replicate that with this design by putting 3 foam squares under these end bits, 2 under these bits, 1 under these, and then just gluing the middle on. I've got my base here, and it probably would have been easier if I'd also cut a square which was the same size as my stacker, because then we could glue it straight to the edge and know we've got it in exactly the right place. But this one, it's a little bit bigger, so I'll just have to try and get that border looking nice as I go. So I've chosen the far left picture, and first I'll put on one layer of my foam squares and peel off the backing to reveal that stickiness underneath. And then this is the one we need to build up to be 3 in total. So take another foam square, put it on top, directly on top of those first ones, like that. Peel the tops off of those foam squares, like so, and then do it once more to get that third level. Feels a bit odd doing this, but it will look right when it's all finished, hopefully. I'm trying this for the first time in this video. I just wanted to give you a version that saved a little bit of printer ink. Okay, so I'm going to line this one up. So I've got a nice border of pink. At least we can maneuver these a bit better because it's sticking on cardstock. Then take the next strip, and this time we'll need 2 levels of foam squares. For the other stackers, it didn't matter if we did one on the left and then one on the right. However, this time I'm going to do everything left to right, because if I start adding some to the right hand side as I go, then I'm not entirely sure my middle piece will fit. So I'll do it this way. Right, that's my 2 levels. So then this one can go up against here. So we kind of want those pictures lined up as if they were touching. Oh, this is a bit trickier than I thought it was going to be, but I think that's okay. And then the next one will be just the one layer of foam. So far, I don't think I'm a fan of this method. Okay, that one lines up next. Oh, that is too close to the top. That's better. Right. Third one done, and then the next one's the middle one. This one will be glued. So I'll just add some glue to the back of this one and put this in place. There. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the foam squares for the remaining 3 pieces, but in the opposite order. So this time I'll put 1 on the next bit, 2 layers on this bit, and 3 on this bit. There are all those strips stuck on. That took quite a bit longer than doing this version. I think it ended up kind of okay, but it's not perfect. Some of the gaps are a little big, and I don't like that when you look at it, you can see the pink coming through each of the rectangles. I much prefer it when we're layering the photos up on top of each other, because you just get a more seamless look, whereas this looks a little bit slapdash and not quite as polished as this one. So I would still definitely recommend this one, even though it does use more of your printer ink and more of your paper, because ultimately it looks a little bit neater, it's easier to go together, and just I think it looks all together a little bit nicer. But there we go. That is our side stacker tutorial complete. And don't forget, there are loads of different templates included in today's download. And there are loads of ways you can use this. You can make them smaller. You've got the square ones and the rectangle ones for each of the templates. And you can even play about with making them a lot smaller on the page, which makes the layering really dramatic. And also, you can use the rectangle one's portrait instead of landscape to give you another effect. And of course, you can always choose to add your favourite family photos. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make side-edge cards with your Cricut machine. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up and come back tomorrow for the next card making countdown. Thank you for watching. Bye!